Welcome to the SuperCoach Experience. I'm your host, Maxi Evans, coach of the Fashionistas, and we're here trying something different, a little Sunday night pod to recap the round, the trials, tribulations, and see what our plans are for the upcoming weeks. And I'm here joined by a very special guest this week, the lovely Timmy, SuperCoach 360 extraordinaire contributor. He's well in the know with everyone in the SuperCoach community, and he's jumped on today to help debut this Sunday pass. So, Timmy, how's it going, and how's your week this week?
Very well, thanks, Maxi. Thanks for having me on, mate. It's a pleasure to be here, that's for sure. Yeah, great week this week, or not too bad anyway. I think I'm 11:35 or something pre-updates, and yeah, we'll see how things go. Hopefully on the up from there.
Fantastic. And what were your trades this week? Did you get sucked into the Talakite 699K? How did you go about that?
I absolutely did, mate. Unfortunately, I've been chasing my tail since starting with Turbo at the start of the season. Tried to do a bit of a pod play to all the other podmasters. Went something a little bit different. It backfired horribly, but offloaded Turbo after round 3, or just before round 3, sorry, and been chasing my tail ever since. So, yeah, I did bite the bullet, brought in Talakai this week, but I kept Teddy while everybody else seemed to be selling him. So I'm doing all right there. I've got halves stacked. I've got fullback stacked. Got Grant up in hooker, and yeah, chipped away, brought in Talakai this week.
Fantastic. And yeah, and that's going to be probably a bit of a talking point later, but Talakai, I mean, if 36 is the worst score he's going to get, you're doing pretty fine. So with the keepers, you kind of get him in, keep him for the whole season. And I do think he's a keeper, despite the fact that I didn't get lured in. So I got a little bit less than you. So you trumped me this week, Timmy. I got 1,099. I actually only brought in IPAP. So I brought in IPAP for Fafita. Once I saw that Fafita was benched, I just kind of didn't want to deal with that kind of nuisance anymore. Bit of a risky kind of move, but it paid off for me with the injury. So I'm sitting around 9,000 at the moment. So I'm thinking I might get a little small green. But it's incredibly tough to get up, and like you went with Turbo early, you've got to find those pod plays and kind of help them bring you up into the top thousands. And you were saying before we started on stream that you've been in the top 1% since 2014.
Yeah, mate, I've had a really good run, and this year just decided to try and do something different, stay away from the pack. We're obviously in our Podmasters group, and we all talk about stuff all the time. Nobody else seemed to be running Turbo. Everyone said it was too expensive and had all the reasons why he couldn't do it. I thought, hey, look, if he starts knocking out 150s to 200s right from the word go, it was going to put me in front of everybody else. That was the plan. Didn't quite go to plan. The flip was it gave me the cash to bring in Hines just about straight away once he started hitting his straps. I could bring in Cleary as soon as he was named. So it wasn't all doom and gloom, but I had a pretty average first 4 weeks, and I've spent this last 4 weeks trying to catch up.
Yeah, and look, there's plenty of the season left to go. You seem like you've got kind of the good template around it, so I'm sure you'll be up in the top 1% in no time. Michael from YouTube says 1347 this week, mate. Absolutely fantastic score. I don't even know how you got that. And Daniel says, what is a par score this week? So I'm thinking pars around the 1100 mark. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think so, mate. I think just from having a look at some of, obviously we're in groups with some really good quality super coaches. There seems to be a lot of low 1100s, but there also seems to be a lot of guys that are still stuck in low 1000s as well. So it wouldn't surprise me if it's somewhere around about 1075 might be par for this week.
Yeah, and that's the thing that we're all in these Podmaster groups, and everyone in there is getting pretty decent scores. So generally you kind of got taken a nick below that. So I think you're bang on with that, probably 1050, 1075, 1100. So I mean for the week I had I had Sammy Walker 7 in there, so I'm not too upset. So I think the best thing to do is get into the game. So this week on Thursday night we had the Broncos versus Sharks. Quite an entertaining game for a low scoring game. The key scores in there, you got 82 from Stags, your 68 from Hines. For people that brought in Talakai, you got 36. He did look likely towards the end, almost scored a try kind of in the last 10 minutes, so it could have been a 70 or an 80. And really the talking point for this game is, Talakai, you're one of the ones who brought him in, 699K. Despite the 36, are you happy with your purchase, long term?
Yeah, look, I really am. And I think once you wait till round 12, he's just about guaranteed at this stage to get centre wing dual. If you can hold on to him, hold him through Origin and put him down in your centre wing, I think it's going to be a massive plus for those that have brought him in. It did cost a few dollars to get there, but I think it's going to be worth it in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem like it's going to, and you might have just pause there for a sec. Back. We're back. It's troublesome internet times here at the household. So where were we? Talakai. So brought him in. Yeah, I agree with you. I think he's well and truly a keeper. You know, you keep him in for that long while. At the end of the day, he's going to get about 100K cash rise by the time all said and done. So worst case scenario, you take the 100K and you run with it. I was one of the ones that actually didn't go with Talakai. I kind of had this view, which I displayed on last Wednesday's pod, and I said that if you're ripping your team apart and trading keepers, and for me it was going to be a Daniel Tupou or an Olakawatu, I wouldn't do it. But if you could get it, via someone who's like a Penasini or someone like that, it was worth going with. So, who did you end up trading to Talakai?
So I had Brown in my 5/8, and obviously, unfortunately, I missed the late call the week before that he was getting switched out to the centres. Now, although his scores haven't been too bad, it's not really what you were paying for and what we needed him to do. So I dropped him, put him down to Cody Walker, and I think then I went. I had Jermaine Chanel-Brown up in the front row, so I dropped him down, and then I think it was basically two downgrades, and then to bring in Talakai. So I did end up having to use a boost, which wasn't part of the plan, but I just basically couldn't make it work any other way. And then when I did the maths and went, it was just about guaranteed to go up 100K plus. In 2 or 3 weeks' time, if it doesn't work, you've got the cash there where you can trade down up in front row and second row. I think the long-term plan is more what I'm looking at after the tough start that I've had.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. He's an easy hold, especially in centre wing, and you can move him between that type. And that centre wing second row and flexibility is fantastic. I mean, Targo having that. I've had Aitken. I had some more. Those kind of really allowed me to play and get the trades that I wanted in. So I think it's a good long-term move. I suppose moving on to the other side of the park, Haas with a 48. Looks to be having some trouble with that shoulder. Brisbane will obviously want to play him because he's such talent. He kind of changes that side. I think from my question to you is from a football perspective. Do you reckon the Broncos will rest him up for a couple of weeks to get that shoulder right, or do you reckon they'll keep on pushing him out there week on week with the jab?
Look, I'm actually a long-term Broncos member. This is 12 years for us. I live up here in Brisbane, so I do see a lot of the Broncos games. We don't miss very many, that's for sure, across the season. But yeah, look, he's an integral part of our team, and to be honest, we really need him out there. You can see from the stands how much of a difference he makes. When he went off in last week's game, was off for these 15 minutes, and that's basically when they scored both tries. Then as soon as he came back on, solidified things in the middle, and he just makes the whole team much tougher, that's for sure, or certainly a lot firmer in defence. But also in attack, he's always an attacking option, can get the offload away, and it just makes a huge difference to the Broncos team. And I think they all know it's just they're a different team when he's out there. So for us, I think it's really important that he does try and get back out there. But at the same time, you don't want him to – it'd be better for him to have a week off, I guess, rather than risk him being out for 6 or 8 weeks to have AC surgery or something along those lines. So, look, if he needs a week, give him a week and we make do. But, yeah, he's certainly an important player for the Broncos, that's for sure.
Yep, fantastic. Yeah, and that's what I kind of think is they'll give him a week, maybe 2, but they'll need him back in there. There's a reason why they named him this week and they played for the minutes they did. It's only when he really went up the tunnel that they really kind of said, no, let's not put him in for the rest of the game. So for owners, I think if it's 1, you hold. If it's 2, would you consider moving to an IPAP if you didn't have him?
Absolutely. That will be my plan for this week. I'm probably going to look at Ilias and trade him down and then use that cash to go Haas up to IPAP.
Yep. That's looks like some great moves. I think I'll be doing the same, although I'll be trying to swing it through Jules, maybe get an Angus Crichton in and use that kind of cash maybe to fuel a move to Hines. I'm one of those people who hasn't gotten Hines yet, and it's kind of impacted me a lot. So we'll try and do as much as I can. So Dean on YouTube just said Melbourne game just updated Grant 103, so that's fantastic. We'll get into the Storm game soon. I mean, he was off at 64 minutes, so just shows you get the important players in. So on to the next game, which was the Titans and the Panthers. So it was a early Friday game. And the big conundrum of a lot of super coaches was, do you VC Cleary into a CPAP? Can you do that with the AEs that you have in your team? I was one of the ones that went straight Cleary C. Look, I was a bit, slightly concerned at halftime, but I know that, Cleary can just lap on the points and he'll find a way to get there. So he ended up with 88, which was basically on the second half. Did you captain Cleary this week?
Yeah, I certainly did. With bringing Talakai in, my plan was that he was just going to be an automatic VC. I have Hines and Cleary up in halfback. Otherwise, I probably would have VC'd Hines. If I had him down in fullback, would have been the right play. But I just figured the Broncos' defense has been very hit and miss, so that's why I went that way. But yeah, it meant that I had to Cleary's there for a reason, and look at the scores that he's pumped out the last 2 weeks. So yeah, he was a definite captain option.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I don't think you can go wrong. Especially when 20% of super coaches were captaining Cleary and another 22, I think, were captaining perhaps. When you've got 20% of sides doing it, it's not like you're doing a 1% captain and if that goes sour, it can be the difference between you getting, a 5K or 10K red arrow. So other plays in that game, we've got Greg Marshy with 82. I like the look of him. He's always, tackle buster. He's amazing in attack. However, Titans run isn't that fantastic, and it's kind of goes from patchy good games to patchy bad games in space of say 4 weeks, which makes it hard to bring someone like him in. But we've got Beau Fermor, who got 50, who is obviously, on the tip of everyone's trades. But for the people who held, that's a solid score you can put in your centre wings. I suppose a big talking point is Fafita. 25, they say he's going to be 3 to 4 weeks out. Who do you see as the most important trade-ins for someone like Fafita?
Oh, look, I guess you still look at, depending on whether or not you've got him, I think you still look at Talakai, you still look at IPAP. I think Angus Crichton, I started with Angus. I also started with Fafita. Neither of them went really well, but I think Angus Crichton will be certainly trying to push his spot. There's been a lot of talk about him not making Origin. And so I think that will be his number one thing over the next couple of weeks to make sure that he shores up that second row spot, or certainly a bench spot, at least with New South Wales. So I think they're probably 2 really good trades, IPAP and Angus.
Yeah, and the good thing about Angus is he's really bottomed out. 5-10K for someone of Angus's talent and a known Supercoach keeper. It doesn't appear to be the riskiest move. You just shore it in, and you can actually create cash, like a lot of cash that way. So to fill a second trade if you want to get up somewhere there. So very good trade in. So the talking point for this one is Isaac Targo. everyone started with him. He's been fantastic for the majority of the season, made us a lot of cash. But since Cleary's come back, he's got a 46, a 53, a 31, and now a 50. And that was with a try. My question is he a sell, even up against Titans next week?
Yeah, look, we had a bit of a chat about this in the 360 group the other night offline. And I'm a big advocate for holding. I think the fact that he's got the dual really makes a massive difference. And then if you look at Talakai, if he gets it in a few weeks' time, but then you look at if people are holding Aiken for the first bye, I think it's really important to have those duals in your team. That wasn't a way that I started, and it's basically something that I've been working towards over the last few weeks. And having more dual flexibility to move around, I think it's massive. Targo is, I'm still not convinced that Panthers are playing as well as they probably can. I think you could see the other night, like we said, Cleary didn't really start to hit his straps until the second half. So the fact that it's still taking him 40 minutes to remember, not so much remember how to play football again, but just for the motor of Penrith to start to click, I think it's only a matter of time before they really do start to put the teams to the sword more so than they already are. And Targo, look how well they played left-hand side last year. So he's going to benefit from that. For me, I'm looking at basically just about holding till the end of the season.
And look, I was on the opposing side. I was thinking of selling him, but after watching Lomax today, he got 39, but he was kind of the one I was looking for. Targo, there's probably bigger fish to fry in most teams. And especially, I completely agree with you. Panthers are going to continue to get better as the season goes. If this is how well they're playing now, imagine how well they were going to be playing by mid to end of season. So I tend to agree with you now, switch my stance on that one. So moving to the next game, which was the late Friday night game, as a Manly supporter, it's tough to speak about this one, given I thought we didn't even have a chance after Carl Lawton gets sent off. But from a SuperCoach perspective, a lot of happy individuals this week with this game in particular. A lot of people brought in Cody Walker. He got a 99, which is fantastic. It's kind of the breakout game for Cody. And a lot of people went Cody and Tass. It was the 175k cheapie, which is, two amazing trades. Cody Walker, he's kind of the conundrum. Do you think he's back?
Look, I think he is, and I think the Bunnies are going to start to improve as well. I know we've been talking about their draw for a while. They've had a pretty soft draw, and they just haven't been clicking. But I think when you've got the new halves pairing, I think it has taken a while for them to click, especially with the halfback being so young. This week I did bring in Cody Walker, and Tass was my other one. So for me personally, the top two scorers, I was pretty happy. But played both of them, and it worked really well. Cody's one of those players. He's certainly a confidence player. He's kind of like Latrell Mitchell, I guess. The better he's feeling, the better the team seems to play, the better he seems to score. So look, I think it's a no-brainer. He's nice and cheap. He bottomed out, and it's on the up and up for Cody Walker.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I've got Samuel Walker in 5'8", and he's one of the big ones I'm looking for this week. The reality is we were down to 12 men for a lot of that game, and South looked rusty at points. But I think just even with their draw, they're clicking a bit more into gear. Cody's getting a lot more ball. And you can't at that price point there's a really limited risk, which brings me on to my next talking point, which is Josh Schuster. So he was the other one I'm kind of looking at. Came back with a 55. He looked fantastic. Coming back. However, he looked a bit underdone. He was still getting into his straps. Obviously, it's not the least serious injury. What do you think about bringing in Josh Schuster at 5'8"? He's 5'8" second rower, and who would you go this week? A Cody Walker or a Josh Schuster?
Yeah, look, I do like Schuster. He's one of those players when he's playing well, he just tears teams apart. He's certainly not a small bloke to have in there. For me, I'm going to look at bringing him in probably in the second row. I've got some cows that just aren't going as well as I really would have liked them to. I think I've still got, I've moved Bullymore up into front row, but I've got Chualangi in there. He's probably, especially the guy just cannot finish an 80-minute game of football. So he's probably someone that I'm going to be looking to move between now and Origin and try and bring Schuster in that place.
Yeah, look, I think any way you can get him in, it's good. He's obviously going to cover that, and he's going to get better as the season goes on. So if you can get both, go for it. Honourable mentions go to Christian Tuipulotu. He's been fantastic for those who have bought on. Sabs has obviously been the campaigner of him, and look, he's been fantastic. I didn't play him this week. I played Cooler over him, but both look like fantastic cheapies. And when Turbo goes off for Origin, they'll both be in the squad if Saab doesn't get dropped before then. So moving on to the next game, which is the Warriors and the Raiders. Now, this was quite a topical game, most probably because of the Ewan Aitken drama. Now, Ewan Aitken was supposedly going to be laid out, which led a lot of people to go early in bringing someone in, and a lot of people were a bit sad in the group chats that I've been a part of. So Ewan Aitken banged out 101, which was a fantastic score. He just looked so lively, and similar to your Targo take that you had, Timmy. I've kind of got the take with Aitken that you just keep him, you hold him in your centre wing, and he'll have those games where he scores 40 or 45, but he'll have those games where he scores a try and gets on 100. But he's got that solid base, which we all love. And the risk is really low with someone like him, so you just keep him in your side and hold him for the rest of the season. Is that kind of your view too?
Yeah, look, I absolutely agree. And the plus with the duel is, depending on matchups, you can move those guys around. I think the problem, though, with Targo and with Aitken is they're both guys that can score tries like at any point, and I don't think it makes any difference who they're playing against. I think Aitken gets plenty of ball in the Warriors. And so I think if you can keep those guys down in your centre wing, like you said, plenty of base. So it's not like they're going to punch out a 15 or something like that. I think if you're happy with 40 week in, week out, and then once every 2 or 3 weeks they get a try and get topped up to 80 or 90 or something like that, or in this case, Aitken turned up. I mean, you can't ask for much more than that. Then you just got to have your high ceiling wingers that'll sit outside them in your 4 centre wings and go from there. But yeah, I think they're great players to have in your team.
Yeah, completely agree. I was tossing up whether to sell him, but after looking at his scores, I think that there's not too many outliers in there. So you hold on to someone like that. So other notable scorers, Whiten with a 77. I was talking up Jazz Targo on Wednesday's pod. Only came through with a 41, which is not fantastic. He's kind of one of those guys who's a SuperCoach favourite of seasons past.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to be a great trade in. Unfortunately, AFB with a 48. So not too much happening on the other side of the park, and that kind of brings us to our next game, which was the early Saturday game, Bulldogs and Roosters, and this was the one which Roosters, SuperCoaches who have a lot of Roosters in their team, like me. We're holding out for. This was the last week. This was the big centuries where Sammy Walker and Suali and Tupou, who was playing, we're going to ton up. But we only really got one massive score, which was Teddy at 101. And we were discussing obviously before the pod and during, but we both held on to Teddy. Do you think he's a season hold after seeing what he did against the Bulldogs, or do you think Roosters are still a bit underdone and there might be cause to move on?
Look, Roosters are definitely underdone, and they're certainly not hitting their straps. But I think last week and this week he had 20 plus touches. So if his work rate has not gone down, so he's not scoring the tries and finishing off the brilliant plays that he has in the past, but he's still getting his hands on the ball. And any time that Teddy gets his hands on the ball, you've just sort of, if you're a non-owner, it's like one of my fear factor players that I write about with the SuperCoach 360 boys. He's just one of those guys that it's too scary not to own him. I kept him when everybody else was trading him to go to Hines, and I just couldn't quite get my head around it. I know Hines have been playing really well, but Teddy's just one of those guys that can ton up. He can play a good team and ton up. He can play a bad team and ton up. So he's just one of those guys. I think once you've got him, you just hold him. Origin's going to be interesting. And I think there's been a lot of pressure on him as well because Hines has been playing so well at the fullback, and New South Wales saying that they're not really sure if they can fit Hines in. So in the last week in the media, they've been talking about, does Teddy really lose his spot to Hines? It's hard to take the New South Wales captaincy off a bloke and then sit him out. So, look, he certainly has a point to prove, and I've got no doubt over the next 3 or 4 weeks he's going to do everything he possibly can to get those Roosters back into gear.
Yeah, 100%. And Evan in the chat said that's what Teddy hit in a team that lost. Imagine what happens when, it comes off for them. So 101 in a side that didn't score too many points at all. I think, you hold on to him for a season. There's a reason why he's been an elite Supercoach option for all these years. And I don't think he's fallen off a cliff. I think it's just Roosters haven't hit their straps yet. And he's still coming into the fold and working out how to work with two essentially, running halves, if you know what I mean. Like, they're not really game managing. They're both looking to kind of, do it all themselves, which is a bit of an issue. So going into other, teams, we've got, Josh Adokar at the Bulldogs with 71. Again, the Bulldogs not really a cause for Supercoach interest. Max King only had 43 despite him starting at lock, which is slightly concerning. My view on front row forward is that besides IPAP and Haas of being, he's going to be probably out for a week or 2 weeks. There's not too many options going on in the front row. So, are you a Max King owner? Did you play him this week, and are you going to hold on to him?
Yeah, look, absolutely. He's one of the players a couple of weeks ago when people were talking about selling to look at other trades to fund. Look, I kept him. And I think he's just going to be the player that I keep in the front row alongside Haas or IPAP, or sort of it'll be Max King and a gun. I think his spot in the side with the Bulldogs is certainly assured. The fact that they put him at lock this week was pretty good. I was hoping for a few more minutes, but he look, I think he's a staple. He's going to be a 40 to 50, maybe 60 on a good week. But I think as far as the funds go, you can split it there between Haas and Max King rather than having 500 or 600 guys in there that are just not going to score as many points. So, yeah, I'm pretty happy. I think he's going to stay there in my team for as long as possible and keep chugging away.
Yeah, I think so too. 43 in front row is not going to hurt your week or not going to destroy your season. So, and it's one of those things where with the injury, with the uncertainty around Haas, plugging in someone like Max is fine. You're not plugging in someone who's going to get 20 or 25 seasons past. Adrianosaurus, the man, the king of Sunday pods, has commented, Max, I just might quit my show on Sunday just to watch you. Very sweet, Adriana. Honestly, mate, if I could do it as good as you, I would join you every week. So good luck to you, mate. And exactly as Cyril said, he finishes his with a song. So Timmy, I'll rip the Band-Aid off early. I won't be finishing this one with a song, so you won't have to drone on to
that. Yeah, not me, mate.
So going into fantastic. So the last one we have to really talk to on this in this side is Angus at 70. We've kind of dabbled on him. He might not be back as per se yet, but I still think he's going to be averaging around 60 to 70k mark. So 5-10k, get on him before he goes up, and as we've kind of both discussed. I mean, in my kind of Origin squad, I've kind of done a list. I do a kind of list every year just to kind of plan around. He's not actually in my Origin team. Do you think he's going to be named? If so, do you think it's because of the form of years past, or do you reckon he's going to really rev into gear as we get into Origin?
I think he's just one of those players that they know they can put him in there and he'll do a job. I think they'll obviously take into account the fact that the Roosters aren't playing so well at the moment. But not only that, the fact that he hasn't been getting the minutes either. I think that the whole issue with Tupanua being put in there, I think that's had an effect on him. Angus has been sensational on the left when they had Boyd Cordner, and Boyd was in and out and they kept having Angus on the left. He did a fantastic job. I can't quite understand why they haven't put him back on the left and put Tupanua back on the right where he was playing as well. I don't get that. But look, like I said before, I think Angus has got a big point to prove. I can't see how they would put him out of the New South Wales squad. Mind you, I'm a Queenslander, so I hope they don't pick him. But he's a fantastic player. He tackles hard, plays hard, and can certainly hit a hole off the halfback out the left-hand side.
Yeah, and I think this is something that's happened to Angus before. He's always kind of starts off slow and really clicks into gear. So, he might well get aimed in Origin, but I just think at that price point, he's like a Cody Walker. You just kind of look at him and, you can't knock anyone trying to go on him. I think he'll come in for me this week if Haas is out for a couple. So obviously a very good trade. My last question is in terms of this game is the Roosters. We've talked about them a lot over podcast path. I started the season with a lot, so I started with Sammy Walker, Angus, Daniel Tupou. I think I even started with Connor Watson. I've been holding on to especially Daniel Tupou for a long while. Thinking they're going to click into gear. He's been scoring mid-50s. Do you think after the loss to the Bulldogs, it's for Supercoach purposes a matter of ripping your team apart to get these guys out? Or if you're someone, of a holder of a Joey Manu, a Daniel Tupou, would you be holding those guys for at least a couple more weeks?
Yeah, look, I'm a big fan, and people seem to talk about this a lot. I really like having my centre wings that you can bank on 50 points. So, I mean, Tupou, he's another player he's not going to give you a 15. I think centre wing is usually the most volatile position that we've got in Supercoach. It's not like a front row forward or a second rower that is going to bang out 40 tackles and at least give you 40 points. So I think players like Tupou in centre wing, he's the next best thing to essentially having an extra second rower, because his base week in, week out is going to be 35, 40 plus. If he scores a try, all of a sudden he's a 70. He's not the kind of guy like, I think, Coates, who's got the ceiling that we're seeing at the moment, that he's 100, 115, 120, something like that. But at the same time, you look at players like him and Josh Adokar that's been around for a long time, they can score 4 tries and still not hit a ton. They're not going to bang out 150s. So I think if you can, at the same time, those are the guys who will give you a 15 or a 20. So it's great for people that are playing those guys. But if you're going to play them and they're playing them week in, week out, I'd take a Daniel Tupou any day of the week and take his 50 or 60 each round that I can bank on and not have to worry about losing points to some bloke that's can't catch a ball and fall over the line.
I think you're right, and that's kind of why I didn't tear my team apart to bring in Talakai this week, because it was going to be through Daniel Tupou, and it goes back to the same point about Teddy. If he's scoring mid-50s in a side that really looks quite just average at the moment, look what happened. Imagine what's going to happen when they click into gear. So I completely agree with you. And there's a reason why Tupou is always in the kind of top 6, top 8 centre wings every year. So he's been one that I'm bringing in. And look, I don't know how he only got 1 week for that clothesline, but I'm very happy about that. But obviously, yeah, him and Manu too. I mean, there's a comments in the chat about Manu being a keeper and Manu playing first round. I think if you bought into him at that price, you obviously have to hold him. But I think from a watching the game kind of standpoint, he's in around everything. He's quite dynamic, and he'll have those games where he'll get those 130s. And the thing which I think a lot of people need to also remember is that he's going to play fullback in that first bye. So that could be a 140, 150 score. So someone like him, just hold for the season and especially over buys, hopefully he'll come to a juicy price for us to buy. I'd love him to come to early 500Ks, but by that round 13 buy, he'll be a key bring in for me.
He's certainly on my list for round 13. So somewhere round 12, round 13, he'll definitely be somebody that I'm trying to get in. He does it every year. Teddy goes out, has a rest, plays Origin, and Manu just absolutely carves up for 2 months. And then at the end of the season, Roosters hit their straps, start playing finals footy, and it's easy for him to turn up. He's got a really high ceiling, and he does have a high base, especially when he's playing from fullback. So for me, it's a no-brainer. Round 12, round 13 is definitely one that you want to aim for. So like you said, hopefully his price dropped a little bit between now and then, and he's sitting nice and juicy, ready for a sort of trade in.
Yeah, and look, I mean, with that, those kind of the lower scores in his rolling average, hopefully he'll come down a little bit. But I even think if, ideally he'd come down to the low 500s. However, even if he's mid, due to the upside, you just bring a guy like him in. And Cyril's saying he already has 3 times this year. It just shows you the upside in a guy like him, especially when he can score from 5 meters out, which is always a good thing. He barges over 3 or 4 people. Which brings us into the late night Saturday game, which was Eels and Cowboys, which was kind of a shock, especially for me. I brought in IPAP this week. Thought he was going to at least barge over. Obviously, the weather has a factor to do with that. With all the heat up there, and the coach is obviously there with his 10 bottles of water. So I think IPAP looked a bit gassed at times, but I brought him late in for Fafita. So obviously like a 40-point gap there, and the price drop that Fafita is going to get made that a good move for me. But I think that'll be a key trade for everyone this week. 56 as probably one of his worst games of the season. I'm absolutely happy with that. The key takeaway from the Eel side is Penasini scored a 60. This is kind of going to be a theme with today's pod, is these kind of the cheapies that everyone's kind of started with in the centre wing who might have peaked. Do you think that Penasini is going to stay in your team much longer, or are you looking to ship him out quite soon?
No, look, he's another one that I'm quite happy to hold. I think he's doing a job. Again, he's not a centre wing that's giving you 15. So if he can bang out 40, 45, 60, around that sort of 20-point either side ballpark, look, I'm happy enough to hold on to him, because generally look at the moment with COVID and injuries and suspensions and everything else, that's the least of my concerns. If I can bank on a 40-point base each week from my centre wings, no, I'm holding him.
Yeah, I'm the same. I like the way he looks and his base. And again, the Eels looked quite shocking on the weekend, and 60 in that kind of side. Everyone's team has got more important issues kind of addressed. So I'm with you on that one. Drinkwater scored a. Sorry, go on.
Sorry, he also had a disallowed try as well, which would have included a line break. So I mean, you can nearly bank another 25 to 30 points on top of that, and all of a sudden you'd be pretty stoked.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Drinkwater came through with 112. He's looking absolutely fantastic, and people are starting to bring him into the origin conversations. As a Queenslander yourself, do you rate him in the origin arena? And do you think he might be a smoky to bring in the 5/8 position?
Look, I can't see him finding a spot in there. I know Billy in the media yesterday came out and said that he's going to mix it up a little bit this year, that basically no one's spot's safe, and it's not on reputation anymore. He's going to do things a little bit differently to some of the other origin coaches. But yeah, look, I personally can't see him finding a spot in there. But come game 2, depending on performances from game 1, if he keeps it up with the Cowboys, he's certainly not doing anything wrong.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, if you're looking at a trade out for a Sammy Walker this week, like I am, I think it's just a bit too risky. With the hammer coming back, I just don't know how they're going to swing things. It's a tough thing if he gets back named up to 5/8. I just think his scoring just goes down heaps, and you don't want someone like that, especially when you've got people with the upside of a Cody Walker. Josh Schuster. So, you've got balls if you're going to go for him. But I think, just go with the safer options. Which brings us to probably the controversy of this game. A lot of people in the chat are saying Dylan Brown, 64. A lot of people sold him to go to a Munster or to get the money to go to Talakai. Probably a question for you is that cutout ball, which he threw from dummy half to Cardi. Do you reckon he keeps that on Monday updates? And do you reckon he deserves to keep that assist?
Oh, look, me personally, I think it's Cardi's assist. It's always a tough one when it comes from dummy half. The easy play would have been for him to pass it to the right. He got the whisper from Cardi. It came from him. Like you could hear it in the mics. He called for it and then switched from the right, went left, and then Cardi basically pushed him over in the corner. So it's as far as I'm concerned, I think it's Cardi's try assist. That might be a slightly dirty ex-Dylan Brown owner too, who traded him out this week. But yeah, like you can only watch so much footy before you start thinking that how is this any different to one last week that might have been similar or the week before. But yeah, from that, it looks like it should have been Cardi's try assist, line break assist.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I completely agree with the Brown owners. It's very funny because I haven't owned Brown this year at all, and when he was getting all those try assists, it was everyone's happy, but most people sold him this week. So to be in the discussions when that assist was awarded to him was always an interesting thing. But I think hopefully after the Cowboys loss, they'll move Brown back to 5'8", and kind of their team runs a lot better that way. And if you held on to him for this long, I reckon owners won't be too displeased going forward.
It's one of those ones where you just can't get your head around like why they made the change. They weren't doing anything wrong, and then the last 2 weeks they've looked really, really average all of a sudden.
Yeah, and the weird thing is, there's a lot of people saying go Cardi at centre. Like you've got enough people to swing around. I think the coach might be concerned about Cardi's defense, but moving potentially your second or third best player in your team to a centre position where he's Dylan Brown's the type of player that needs his hands on the ball. It's a very questionable decision, and I think that after the game, that he'll ultimately move back to 5'8", and as a Brown owner, this is kind of what you want is a really bad game from the Eels. The coach wants to switch things up, and he goes back to his favourite position. So I think if you're an owner, this is just the best. And in a bad game, he got a 64. So I think you're kind of happy with that. And then people who sold, you obviously went to someone better, but long term, I don't think there's any bad decisions with those trades. Which moves into the other talking point of this game, Reuben Cotter. A lot of people brought him in a couple of weeks back. I was one of those who was considering bringing him in. He was named off the bench that week, so I actually didn't end up going him. But he scored 76 this week, played bulk minutes. I think he made over 130 meters. He plays that round 13 bye. Is he someone that you're going to move on? Or do you want to see it happen a couple more weeks before you bring him in for that round 13 bye?
Look, me personally, I think he's actually a smoky for Origin. It would not surprise me if he comes on off the bench, or maybe try and play him out of that sort of utility role. I think he's somebody who does have some skills and can be moved around a little bit. I've got no doubt he could probably play in the back line to patch up a hole if he needed to. So, yeah, outside of that, if he's available in 13, yeah, look, he's somebody that I'd probably look at trying to move Randall to with a little bit of cash. So it's a little bit of a wait and see for me as to I wouldn't go now on him and bank on him being available for round 13. I think he's one of those guys that you'd wait till round 13, see who's named, and go from there.
I mean, that Origin shout is a huge thing, which I didn't think of when I was preparing the run sheet for this evening's episode. It's obviously something which comes into consideration. I completely agree with you. Every time he's on the park, he makes an impact, and again, he can just move around a bunch of different positions. So maybe it's for my team. Maybe it's a case of holding off for a couple of weeks. Going to Angus, maybe going to Cody, and then doing that Randall to Cotter trade later on in closer to round 13. So that's a great shout there. We're going into the early Sunday game, which was Knights and Storm, and if you're an owner of any Storm players, the more the merrier you are after this game. So we've got 3 tons, actually 4 after Grant got updated to 103. We have Olam with 127, Coates 115, Meany 113, and Grant with 103. I suppose the key takeaway for this one is, are you a Coates owner? And if so, would you be kind of tempted to bring him in for that kind of Akila Uwate 3-week period, get that price rise and then ship him off?
Yeah, look, he's been playing really well. It's always hard with the Storm, and I think I've had a bit of a chat about this in the Podmasters groups that we've obviously, like we were talking about earlier, that we're a part of, and we've got the chats and everything else. Coates to me is like Adokar 2.0. He's just that guy that he can bang out 100 and then next week he'll give you a 20. So the fact that he's had 2 tons in a row, I think, but You can give him another couple of weeks and instead they'll start going left instead of right or right instead of left, and all of a sudden he's not going to get the ball. And that's always been the problem with the Melbourne Storm. Vunivalu used to play there. We've had Addo-Carr there, and they were both the same. 1 week a bloke would ton up, and then the next week he'd get 20. While he's scoring 20, the other winger would ton up. And it just seems to be the way with the Melbourne Storm. He's not a player that you can bank on. I've got no doubt across the season he will average really high as far as the centre wings go. But, I mean, he's not even the kind of player, because it's a Melbourne Storm, where you can go, I'll play him against the Knights, but I won't play him against the Roosters. Because you might find he scores a 20 or a 30 against the Knights because they don't go that way. And then playing against the Roosters, they might go there all afternoon. So it's just, for me, I'm not going to pull my team apart to get him now, but it's certainly someone that I'll keep an eye on. But as far as the way that I traditionally play Supercoach, he's not the kind of player that I'll have there.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I mean, for the people who had that, there was a kind of a sweet spot 2 or 3 weeks ago where everyone that brought him in or started with him was looking at shipping him. I know, one of the big ones in the Supercoach community is a Whisperer, and he obviously held on to him. If you made that call and said, look, I'm just going to tough it out for another couple of weeks and keep in your side, you are absolutely laughing at the moment. And then that's why, Supercoach can be such a cruel game at times. If you sold him after those first 3 or 4 weeks, you are, you're in a lot of pain at the moment. So well done to people who held him. But yeah, I completely agree. I don't think he's kind of worth the quick cash grab at that price point. So the other node. Sorry, you go.
Yeah, sorry. I know Ross Mann, shout out to Roscoe, who does a lot of the writing and the podcast stuff with us with 360. He actually sold Coates before last week. So he was super dirty last week with his result, and then I haven't had a chat to him yet since the Storms game this afternoon. But mate, I've got no doubt he'd be just about looking for the delete app button.
Yeah. It's. I mean, everyone who's played Supercoach has had those types of moves. The same thing with 8 Canonas this week. Objectively, they're the right decisions to make after seeing the way the Storm were playing after those first 4 or 5 weeks. You were looking at Coates and going, there's not much ball going down his side. He's a 100% a trade out. And if anyone asked me, I'd say the exact same thing. But then things change, and you're absolutely killing it at the moment. So yeah, sucks to Roscoe and to those who sold him. But that's Supercoach for you. Welcome to the game, especially from you yourself who started with Turbo. Sometimes these risks pay off, and sometimes they don't.
That's exactly right, mate.
Yeah. So, other notable one I kind of just wanted to talk to you about is Josh King. Scored a 60 today. I've held him for a while, and I'm just going to continue to hold on to him. He's getting 60. He's actually in my second row, so I'm planning to bring him up to the front row and kind of get him in there. Is he kind of similar talking point to Max King, in which case you just hold on to them because you started cheap with them, or are you looking to move someone like a Josh King on soon?
Yeah, look, I haven't got him and I haven't had him. I went Max King when they were both available, and I think it was just a price point at the time. Look, I think he's one of those guys, just like Max King. I think if you've got him, you hold him and just ride the roller coaster. He's a great option as your second front rower if you've got him there. As far as second rowers go, he doesn't seem to have the same ceiling. But through updates now, so he's currently sitting on a 64. So again, if he's a player who can bang out 50s to 60s plus each week, I think he's a solid staple player that you can play in your 17 and be happy enough. Or just hold him there and see if he can get a little bit more cash. He's another one of those players that a lot of guys seem to be dropping, traded him out last week or the week before. I couldn't quite understand that because you could see, I think a couple of weeks ago he had an 80 or an 85 or something like that. So I couldn't quite get my head around it. I think he's just one of those guys that you'll hold for the season and will just be a bit of a slow burn. But he's going to have those good games. Again, he's not a player that's going to give you a 15, 20, 30. He's just going to keep chugging along. He's going to be a solid player that you can just bank on some points with.
Yeah, I think you're right. And the thing for me is even when they're, I saw a couple of times today, 10 meters out, is they're looking for someone like him to kind of break the line. And, he's the type of player, he has got attacking stats previously, and he will continue to pick him up, especially in the Storm side. So, front row forward, same story. Someone with his base, you hold on to him for as long as you can. I mean, if I didn't have IPAP and he was my only route to get there, maybe I'd think about it. But otherwise, there's as I said before, there's more important issues in most people's teams, which moves us on to the last game of the weekend. Which, I mean, for all it was drummed up to be, and all I thought it was going to be drummed up to be, it wasn't the most exciting game. The big talking point from this one, and a lot of people moved on in this week. Henry, who says Lomax is a keeper and Penasini still has cash to make. Lomax was the big trade-in for a lot of people this week. Brandon Savage obviously went him this week. A lot of other pod masters went him this week. 39 isn't the worst score, but just seeing, you would have wanted more from him this week. Do you think he's still an option in the centre wing?
Yeah, look, again, it comes down to just another centre wing with a high base. I think he's a guy that if you've got him, you hold on to him, you ride the roller coaster. And the plus with him is he's obviously a kicker as well. So if you've got him in your team, you can bank on a few extra points. Look, I can't fault him. He's a player that I've had in the past. He has turned up in the past. The problem with the Dragons, I guess, is just how they're going. And that game was a bit of a bludger this afternoon. I've had a keen eye because I've still got Tuolangi in my team, and the fact that he can't play and that can't finish an 80-minute game. The guy can't finish a half of football, let alone an 80-minute game. So I watched the game pretty closely. Yeah, look, if you had Lomax, I think you'd hold him, but certainly still hold him until round 13, and see what other options are available then.
Yeah. I think, there's a lot of centre wings in that kind of keeper or 19th, 20th man kind of range. I don't think you can go wrong with someone like a Lomax. My keen interest in him was because he always finds a way to get around 45 to 60, no matter what the Dragons really do. So exactly as you were saying before, the high base there, you can't go too wrong. From the Tigers side, Brooks with a 99, which is going fantastic. Hastings with a 70. He's not too expensive at the moment. Might be a little bit of a shout to bring in. I just don't know how long the Tigers are going to hold up. But, as we were talking about before, the key talking point was I actually played Tuolangi myself. I don't think he'll ever play a full game. And I think the thing about him is I've played him the majority of times where he's been in this year, and the head clashes or the going down with injuries, I just don't want that risk in my side if I can avoid it. So I think I'm going to hold him, but not playing for a long while. Do you think you'll be holding him for a bit longer, or are you keen to sell him this week?
I think unless he gets some attacking stats, he's fairly bottomed out. But again, he's another one like today, scored a try very dubiously. They knocked it back. I watched it so many times, and I know in the Podmasters chat we had guys sending different angles of the video and things like that. I can't see where they picked up a knock on from. The other interesting point, slightly off topic, but the interesting point, how they gave a penalty away for him being caught in the air while trying to score a try, but then it wasn't I can't understand why they didn't give the penalty try. So if it's in the act of scoring, he was penalised against, why was it not a penalty try? I couldn't get my head around that one.
Yeah, and that's what I was looking at with the game is, he caught the ball, albeit being tackled in the air. It was only when he grounded it that he arguably knocked it on. If he wasn't tackled in the air, he probably grounds it, correctly, and that's a try. So, yeah, I think it was a bit of a Barney, and I completely agree with you. I mean, they slow-moed it down, but in real time, it was pretty clear he grounded it. I think the standards kind of dropped from recent years, which that completes our roundup. So I think probably we do a couple of questions and get out of here. The first question we've got is if Tass is named from Cyril Jenkinson, if Tass is named next week, he would have to trade Penasini to him. If you're looking at getting someone like a Tass who's going to go up, 100, 200K, you'd think by the time he's peaked, would you be getting rid of Penasini for him? Or would you be looking at, anyone else to get but Penasini?
Yeah, look, I'll be trying to look for as many different ways to not trade those guys that you're banking the 40 points on each week. But I guess it depends on the makeup of your side. If you've already got 5 decent centre wings, then maybe Penasini is the next best one. I mean, you've got 7 spots there, and if he's saying Penasini's the only one that he can trade down to, then it sounds like he's fairly stacked and he can probably afford to trade him down to a Tass. For me personally, if it was a case of, you can say no, but then I guess I did the same thing with Talakai this week, purely as if all else fails, it's a cash grab and make $100,000. So I guess you can't say no to it, because if he's going to bank nearly 300K from going Penasini down to Tass. So I guess in some ways it's a no-brainer if then he's going to gain another $100,000 in a week as well.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's no real wrong option with that. Do I think Penasini is going to finish as the top or second top centre wing? No. But if you've got other routes to get him, go ahead and get him. Henry has asked for feeder to who, which we've kind of touched on previously. Henry's was first at one point. Amazing SuperCoach mind, obviously in the Podmasters group. Him and I have been giving it a lot to each other because of the Newcastle fandom that he has and how he doesn't like the Manly side. So I think Timmy might have dropped off, but I think as we kind of spoke about recently, I'd be looking to go with someone like an Angus Crichton to get the 100K, 180K, 190K. Moving off to someone like him is always a good option. IPAP, obviously, we've talked about before. Besides Angus, besides IPAP, is there anyone you really think is a fantastic trade-in for feeder this week, Timmy?
Look, in my second row, I went a bit of a different route to a lot of other teams. I've actually got Olakau'atu and I've got Yo. I can't fault either of them. Olakau'atu seems to have a little bit higher ceiling this season than what Isaiah Yo have got. But there, again, if you're looking for base points that you can just about put your house on, those boys getting 60, 65 every week, and then some kind of upside as well. Olakau'atu scored some tries. He just seems to score them. Late last season, he was hitting 80, 85, 90, and I think he got a couple of tons in there as well. But yeah, look, those are the other sorts of guys that I try to look for, that have got a really solid base but can find the line as well.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on the Olakau'atu take. As a Manly fan, I was talking to Brando about this earlier. I just think when we're 20 meters out from the try line, we're looking for him, and he's kind of the one where Turbo's out back. Ola is that kind of when Turbo's a decoy, Ola's often in a gap, and I think he'll continue to kind of go that way. So I completely agree with you. We'll see how that goes. One of the comments is about Tohu Harris, and I suppose he's a second row keeper of seasons past. Kurek is asking if Tohu's named next week, assuming he's named to start, because obviously you wouldn't bring him in if he's going to get eased back. I personally think he's going to get eased back.
Yeah,
would you bring him in for feeder?
No. He's had a long injury, a long layoff. There's no way in hell the Warriors are going to start him and play him for 80 minutes, first cab off the rank. He'll either get eased in off the bench, or they might start him and he plays 50 minutes or something like that. I can't see him, after the amount of time he's had out of the game and the injuries that he's had, I can't see him starting and playing 80 minutes straight up.
Yeah, and that's what Warriors have done when he came back from injury previously. But I mean, for if you're keen on Tohu or you're Warriors fan, keep posted, because if he drops 150K, he can easily be brought in. They're going to play that round 13 bye, I believe. I think he's a much better play than AFB when he gets back up to full strength. So keep a lookout for him, because he will be someone in round 12, round 13 we're looking to bring in. Well, it's been a fantastic episode. Great to have you on, Timmy. I think you've absolutely smashed it. It's evident while the SuperCoach 360 boys are getting you on. You're a great SuperCoach mind. And firstly, thanks for coming on the show. And kind of parting words is, good luck for the rest of SuperCoach season. And we'll hopefully we can chat soon on another Sunday night.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for having me, mate. And I'd certainly love to jump back on again.
Beautiful. All right. Take care, Timmy. Thanks, mate.
Thanks, mate. Stay safe and be good.
See you, mate. Bye.